Welcome to the PM IRL podcast. I'm your host, Chuck Scott. Have you ever considered being self-employed but wondered how anyone actually makes the leap of faith? Do you find yourself stressed out at home and at work? Have you hit a glass ceiling in your career? Keep listening. This is the podcast for you. Throughout my consulting career, working with Fortune 500 clients, I've developed a series of mantras, methodologies, and mindsets that can be applied to your everyday life situations. You'll see your success rates increase and simultaneously your stress levels reduce. I'm also a serial entrepreneur and have applied these learnings to start, own, and operate multiple businesses over the years. As a result, I experience freedom in my schedule, my mental space, and in life as a whole. The goal of this podcast is to share entrepreneurial stories with the world for inspiration and to give you, the listener, insights into the mindsets of those who are taking action towards a greater life. So I have my guest, Dustin Biddle, back for a second time on the hashtag PM in Real Life podcast. Today, we are going to talk about AI and not only ChatGPT, but all the different tools out there. Dustin and I have been talking a lot about this recently, and the goal is to make this a ongoing series here. I'm finding in just my professional conversations and personal conversations that not everyone has embraced AI yet. And Dustin and I and other colleagues that I have are really getting to the point where we're marveling at the time savings that these tools can do to not only our professional lives, but our everyday lives. So we're just finding more and more use cases that we want to share with the bigger audience. I think the common thought process out there right now is that if I have to still touch an AI tool, why bother with it anyway? And I think users like us, the thought process is, if it saves me 80% or more of my time, why wouldn't I use that tool?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's what we want to talk about today. We are going to really segment this into what we're calling like step 0 to 1, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what's fascinating about 0 to 1 is it's the hardest step, I think, in any kind of activity that we approach, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, and also I think, AI, I feel like, Chuck, a lot of people have polarizing opinions, right? They're either it's coming to Terminator style, or it's this magic bullet that solves everything, right? And the truth is, it's probably somewhere in the middle, a little bit more, I would say, malevolent than destructive. But yeah, absolutely. So I'm excited.
All right. So where do you want to take it first?
Yeah. So let's start with, I think, the hardest concept of 0 to 1 as a common industry term. So let's break down what 0 to 1 means. Imagine any activity you want to do, like build a house, mm-hmm. right? What are the first steps you would do?
Well, normally you start with foundation, right? I'm assuming we've already selected land, right?
These are all important questions, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I'm probably going to do some scouring of what are my criteria and where do I want to even build this property, right? Based on my criteria. Close to my work, if I physically go to work, close to where I want to go for kids' schools, things of that nature. These would be criteria / attributes or prompts, right?
Right. And so why do you have those ideas in your mind? That those are the important steps that we get in?
Because of the key word you just said, important. They're important to me as the user, and hence I would hate to build a house in Hawaii when I don't live in Hawaii, right?
And we all have context of living somewhere, right? Yes. So we can say, okay, I lived in an apartment, right? Or I lived with my parents, or I have owned a house or a condo, and you have those experiences, right? So you have built your 0 to 1 already, right? You have said, okay, I need water and electricity. Those things are important. I need to keep food, right? Like those concepts, you have already built your 1, 2. Okay. Right? Now, if you take that concept and say, okay, well, what can AI do with that, right? AI can help you get to that place with any given subject, which is a super fascinating approach, I think, towards AI, and one that I have been using a lot lately, especially the technical industry. Lots of terminology thrown out there, right? Lots of spaces to think about how technologies interact with one another, the language and so forth. There's a lot of 0 to 1 there, right, that I'm not familiar with. So the idea of 0 to 1 is, in the case, bring it back to the house, right? It is coming up with, where do I start? That is your line, right? So where do I start is, I need to ask specific questions. I need to understand specific pieces of information before I can take my next step. That's the 0 to 1. That is one I think we have such a hard concept with, right? These days, it's just the bigger and the vaguer, especially kind of coming back again to the IT world, as we have larger spans of, technologies that can do things for us. It's how do I get started, right? And so it is a powerful, powerful tool for that. So you have to understand, I think, where we're coming from on the AI sense, that AI is not the Google search. Okay. Right. So we're all familiar, I think, with Google search, right? It's kind of this very binary relationship that we have. You put in a keyword, you kind of get someone's built biased, page that describes something or another, right?
Well, let's take a step further back. In Google searching, these are the things I consider. In my search criteria, what's going to come up to the top or on the first page are things where someone has strategically done SEO, search engine optimization. Ads, like paid ads, are going to come right to the top. So I even have to filter through that. That's part of my criteria for a Google search.
Yeah. So because you're trying to sift out bias, right? You're trying to identify where is information as opposed to an opinion, right? I think this is, again, where I have found AI to be incredibly powerful in the sense that it is an engagement model, right? So, again, bring this back to what a Google is. Google, you're getting these web pages, right? But they're not necessarily answering your question, nor have you constructed a question, right? Sure. Because that's not how you search, right? You're using keywords.
Actually, I ask questions to Google, all transparency here.
Fair enough. But oftentimes, I'll admit, I search with a keyword. So, I specifically know a website or a concept. I'll give it a very maybe short sentence or a word or two. And with AI, it's much more of a conversation.
This is true. I've had full-blown conversations with ChatGPT at this point. And so going back to your whole concept of it's hardest to start, to get to that first, that from to one. I've only been in AI tools for the last 30 days or so, hardcore, trying to use them in lots of different places in my life. And I probably jumped to step 2 and then refined back to step 1, if that makes sense, based on the results. So, so going back to your house example, I'm going to say, build me a house. And I'm probably going to say things like, I want 4 bedrooms and a walkout balcony and a walk-in closet, right? And to your point, it's going to build it in some place I didn't want it. And I'm like, whoa, let's refine that. And I'll put some parameters on there and say, okay, I want it in Columbus, Ohio, because that's where I reside, that's where my lifestyle is, etc. And then from there, I continue to build. So
yeah, absolutely. And what is that, Chuck? That is a conversation. I mean, there's not someone speaking back to you, but you're literally having a conversation with the information being presented.
Yeah. And to your point about this conversational piece, I don't think, a lot of people that aren't using it yet even think of it this way. But, there are lots of times, think of it as like having an assistant. If you had a personal assistant or an admin that worked for you, they would do something for you and you would say, no, I don't want it that way. I want it this way. And that's literally how the tool works is, I'll continue to refine the thoughts and ideas. I'll even tell it I like parts 1 and 2, but not 3 and 4. So I'll keep working on 3 and 4 until I get it just right as a whole. And so that's part of the relationship. It's weird to say that about technology, but that is part of the relationship with these tools is if you don't like it, continue refining until you get to the right place. But I think the value is that it happens in seconds versus if we were doing this from scratch, it would take us an hour or two, right?
No, 100%. So again, getting it back to this 0 to 1 aspect, when you're building a house, you would approach a house builder, right, who is an expert in that field. Or if you were to, I don't know, it could be anything. If you were to put a marketing plan together, right, you would approach an expert and you would want to have a conversation. Hey, I'm new. I don't quite know how to speak to you yet. I don't know what matters. Can you help me bridge these gaps, right? So that part of you getting to that one is part of what makes AI so powerful, right? You can approach it from any level of expertise and say, I am an expert in my field and I want you to refine some of the things I know. I am just a beginner. Break things down to very, very, very simple concepts. And then once I have enough language, as you said, now I can refine what I'm asking you, right? And so that is tremendously powerful. You can use that for your own knowledge. You can use that to help you engage in a conversation with another human, right? So that's one aspect of 0 to 1, right? Just this conceptual knowledge of I need to do a thing and I'm not familiar with how to speak this language or the things that I need for that, right?
Yeah, so a real close to home use case that happened recently is I had a bunch of work done to the exterior of my home, which ties right into this example. And, dealing with contractors, right? And we often use terminology of you don't know what you don't know, right? In hindsight, I kind of wish I'd said, hey, for the projects that I'm looking to do at my house, tell me the things I should be asking a contractor. Like, I wish I'd use AI in that way. Yeah. To your point, to come to the conversation with the human contractor with already having a certain level of expertise and knowledge base of okay, what about this? How are you doing that, right? And making sure that my end product would come out the way that I wanted it.
Yeah, that's awesome. And if you've never used AI before, again, to me, it's a matter of thinking about having a conversation with someone and empowering the technology on the other end to play the role that you need them to do, right? And if you're like, well, I'm not familiar with how to set them up to be successful, set me up to be successful. You can approach it from that way too. That can be your 0 to 1. You can say, hey, AI, I am not familiar with you. Help me understand how to better connect with you to build prompts, right? To understand how to engage further. And you can start there.
Yeah.
That can be your 0 to 1. And then, okay, now I conceptually understand how to engage. And so now I can bring more context, right? That's the super powerful thing about AI that is amazing.
Yeah. And so I really want to encourage listeners that haven't tried it yet to just think of any problem that you have to solve today, right? And try to apply AI to that problem, whether it's to solve the problem or even to educate yourself further on that problem or that subject matter so that you could be a little bit more versed. I recently started a conversation on LinkedIn about AI, kind of leading into this conversation, because I really wanted to get a broader conversation going with people on, are they leveraging the tool? If so, how? One of the ideas that I heard out there, which I thought was amazing, was the person said that coming into a meeting at work, they leverage AI to throw out some counterpoints to what they want to essentially promote or, during that meeting. So they can already strategically start thinking, hey, if this gets thrown on the table, this is how I can counteract those questions or those responses. And again, from a negotiation standpoint, from a influence or woo standpoint, which is critical in, work situations, I thought that was brilliant. I hadn't even thought about it that way, right?
Yeah, and it's wild, right? Again, if you think about AI as someone with a conversation that you're with and think of it as a safe space to have a conversation, you can literally ask it anything. You can say, hey, treat me like I'm an interviewer, right? Help me build a debate,
right.
Counterpoints, point out the flaws in what I've done, expand on this subject. You can use it as an aggregation function. You can say, here, I have this big, lengthy document, right? And tell me this in a way that I can consume this in a few paragraphs, right? It is incredibly powerful from a contextual standpoint to, play those games. Again, think of AI as a conversation to be had, right? And you can ask that anything. You can ask that conversation anything.
I really like that. Think of it as a safe space, right? a lot of people struggle with this concept of imposter syndrome these days, right? So if you're one of those people that struggle with the feeling of being an imposter, you can ask these questions ahead of time and make yourself more powerful and knowledgeable when you get human facing with basically all the right answers, right? Again, to your point, the power of of these tools is kind of insane from a human application standpoint, and how you can quickly garner information and gather it and then re-leverage it in human interactions. For me, I keep thinking of the Matrix movies, right? Like the whole, you plug it into the back of your neck and then you're like, I know Kung Fu. That's how this feels in some ways.
I like that. That's very, it's very true. It's very true. Now, it isn't going to be that powerful, but yes, you are right. That's your 0 to 1.
Mm-hmm.
So I think to best interact with AI, let's think about what 0 to 1 means for you and what do you need it to be, right? Is 0 to 1 to be, I am super new to this and I just want to get a little bit of a safe space to figure out how to ask, and then start with that. Figure out there. I think there's a lot of, especially I see on LinkedIn, there's a lot of people claiming to be experts and claiming to have all of these wonderful tools that solve everything for you for a fee, of course, right? And everybody wants to tell you how to perfectly prompt. And the truth is, you don't have to be an expert. You don't.
I agree.
Right? Like, I know when I first started getting into learning how to use AI tools, I was like, oh, okay, I need to structure my prompts in a very specific way to get the most maximum output. Now, there is truth in the way that you structure your prompt will benefit you stronger.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where that expertise comes in over time, right? You learn, I'm having a conversation. And there are some limitations in my conversation. I want to call out that, again, this expertise, this concept of engaging in a conversation with AI as an expert, they are not every single answer, right? This isn't, oh, cool, I can take this thing 100%, not scrutinize it and engage, and I'm good to go. You always have to have a healthy skepticism, I think, to what you consume, right?
That's a good point.
Yeah. But, again, that 0 to 1 concepts, it's going to bring terminology to you. It's going to bring concepts and ideas. 0 to 1 can be a lot of things. It could be, I'm trying to think of a brand name, right? And here are things I like. I want to start a business associated with cookies. I don't know how to get started, right? It can be any of those pieces. And then you can get to 50, 75, 80%. It's not your one, right? That's I think what's key here is it's not your one. You need to do the effort, energy to get it to the one, but it's going to get you darn close, right?
Yeah. Going back to your concept of it being a safe space. So, for my viewership, I like to think of this podcast as great for program and project managers because we talk a lot about those principles, but we also talk about real life application. And I love talking about like career changes, entrepreneurship and whatnot. And the cool thing about AI is it's truly unbiased. It's an unbiased safe space, right? One of the things that entrepreneurs always talk about is making that jump and having a lot of negative people in their network to, tell them they shouldn't do it. So I love that you said it's a safe space, it's unbiased, and you can literally, like, from that 0 to 1, you can start bouncing ideas off of it without the negative influence. It's just going to throw out facts of like, all right, I want to start a restaurant. It's going to tell you the stats of like success and, success and failure rates. It's going to tell you like key attributes on where to place it, staffing models, normal investments to start a restaurant. Like, it's going to give you all that data and information. I almost think of it like C-3PO from the Star Wars movies. Yeah. And you always got Han Solo saying, never tell me these statistics or the odds. That's what it says. Never tell me the odds. Yeah. But, when you're really taking any type of risk or you're about to do something that's a big move for you, you kind of want to have that data to be able to make your own assessment. I think that's what you're speaking to is you're still going to have to make some assessments to get to one. But having that information is also not a bad thing.
Right. And how quickly you can get to that point, right? So if it's an incredibly new concept, that it might feel daunting to get to that first spot. But if you can get 70, 80% there, and then the rest of your energy is, figuring out that next 20% to get to that space, that's a far less daunting of a journey to go on, for sure. And I think what's powerful is, again, if you think about AI as a conversational piece, you can increase its intelligence or you can decrease its intelligence. And so what I mean by that is simplify things. You can tell it to, hey, I'm a high school student, or I'm a grade schooler, tell me the concept, give me an analogy that I can consume, because that's where I need to start, right? So you can, it's not, not dumbing it down, but it can simplify logic way down, right? And then you can say, okay, I get these core concepts. Now I need you to increase your expertise, right?
Yeah.
So it can scale with you, and I think it's incredibly powerful.
Yeah, I agree. Again, this is going to be a series that we'll put out there. I like that we kept our scope small today.
Yeah.
Just from 0 to 1. I think we'll continue to build on that from okay, now you've got to 1. Where can it take you next? So those will be some of our next series. And just build it. Maybe we'll even take a use case of hey, we're trying to do X, and we'll just go from 0 to 1, 1 to 2, 2 to 3, etc., and walk the users through that process. So we'll have to think offline about what that example is going to be. But I think that would be a fun exercise to show the listeners the power of this tool. I want to do a really quick fun exercise. This is unscripted here. Dustin had no idea this is coming. I want to do a quick fun exercise where we're going to do some rapid fire. I'm going to throw out different industries or different roles like titles, job titles. And I want you to just throw out the first idea that comes to your mind on how AI could be leveraged in their role.
Okay.
Is that fun?
All right.
Because again, as I'm talking to people in the marketplace, I feel like most people don't think that if I'm in role X, AI doesn't benefit me. I can't see the use case. Okay. So we're going to do a quick rapid fire.
All right.
Okay?
All right. I'll do my best. All right.
Awesome. All right. Here we go. Accountant.
An accountant, right? So we can break down some of the industry terminologies. We can break down, what goes into, some of the formulas that make up, mathematical equations, things that you're probably very familiar with, but you can scale that tenfold. So you can break down accounting concepts, you can break down, equations and stuff like that. You can also construct, what does it mean to be that next tier in your role? So an accountant, what's behind management of accountants, right? You can use it to upscale. Yeah.
Okay. How about a sports coach?
A sports coach. Okay, so we're not going to go with any specific sport here.
Football.
Okay, football
coach.
Football coach, right? So, AI is used a lot. I think we see that on Amazon's trying to promote all of these hidden numbers and stuff like that. Right now, it takes specific AIs trained on that kind of stuff like that. But again, what AI is going to do for you there is find hidden information that you weren't aware of. So if you want to go to a generic sense of a coach, you can say, you can have it consume a lot of information and say, what are key focuses that I need to do for coaching, right? Whatever skill set, whatever team, what's motivating, what's not, you can break it out in those kinds of senses.
Okay. All right. Let's see here. I'm trying to think of very obscure.
All over the place.
I know. I'm trying to think of really obscure job titles and whatnot. Let's go with I'm a janitor. That's way off the grid.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm a janitor. What would I use AI for? Yeah. Interesting. Let's think here. So I bet you're using a lot of products. And if you want to be entrepreneurial with being a janitor, maybe you're considering starting a business. Mm-hmm. And so, what would a business model look like for a janitor, right? Or if it's not that direction you want to go and you want to, what's the best approach towards cleaning whatever, right? Okay. You could ask it that kind of stuff. And you're thinking, how does AI know this kind of stuff, right? How does it have this? Well, it's because its sources, right, are from books and books and books built by experts who have said, this is the way you approach this. And it then says, okay, expert A, B, and C has said these common things amongst those 3 books and builds those concepts. And so it's wild. It's wild.
I agree. Last one. You mentioned books. Author.
Oh, an author. Oh, that one is really, really interesting. So an author, it can be a jumpstart tool. So you can say, I want to build a story that's never been told which is an interesting thing to say. I've never been told about whatever. You can get it in a scrape of information. Say, build me a starter, build me a paragraph, or you can get real deep, right? You can have it construct a lot of information for you, but what's key there is that you have to be very careful not to copyright. So you declare, again, think of AI as of a conversation. So you're going to say, hey, AI, first things first, do not give me anything that's copyright, right? Because that's the way you would approach it next. You would say, hey, look, I need advice. I'm going to start writing a story. I need some jumping off ideas, right? And I have a hard time getting pen to paper. But please, whatever you give me, don't give me something that's already been out there. And give me something that's fresh and new, right? It can critique you too. So you can give it your information, which is there's an appropriate way and approach to do that. And this is probably something we can get into a little bit later about, prompt construction. There is a way to build healthy, better prompts, right? Like I said, anybody can get started. This is very, very true. And you will learn and you will perpetually get better about, building identities and defining goals and kind of telling you how to get output. But construct in that way to say, these things matter to me. Be unique, avoid copyright, and give me fresh ideas.
Love it. You did very well with the impromptu.
I don't know. The coach one was tricky. I suppose you could get more plays and things like that out of it too. Everything would get to those.
I think the goal or the point here is the possibilities are endless.
Yeah.
So I always like to end on some type of call to action. So for those of you who have not started using AI, my call to action is between now and the next time we talk about this. The next time that you have a problem that's going to take any more than like a quick immediate thought and you can respond to it, think about, could ChatGPT either help me solve this problem, provide information to me, or could it always solve the problem, right? Like, could it do this task for me on my behalf, right? And so I'd love to hear how you've used that in your own personal lives, tried it out, what you found, and again, focus only on that 0 to 1 as Dustin mentioned. Does it get you even just started on some new concept? So feel free to interact with me on LinkedIn, however you access me. Would love to have those conversations. I really want to make this a more global conversation because I feel like a lot of people are missing this opportunity to get faster, and the world is going to get faster through AI. Like that's a given. It's just a matter of, are you going to be on that train? Yeah. Or are you going to be staying at the station wondering what happened, right?
Oh, yeah.
I don't think AI is something to fear. I think it's something to harness and leverage because I think the world's just going to get quicker and be able to do more faster as a result of AI. So I think this is a really beneficial series. We'll continue this. Dustin, I thank you again for being a return guest and willing to embark on this series, and we will go from there. All right?
Yes, leverage AI now. There is always going to be better. Don't wait for that better because you think, I don't want to invest my time now. I want to wait till it's a robot that's talking to me. Invest your time now. There's value to be gained now on any given role, any given concept.
Yeah. And the only thing I'll kind of put a cherry on top of that is there's no training modules out there. You don't necessarily have to pay for these, services. Everyone is in learning mode now. It's kind of like a new video game release, right?
Yeah.
I don't play current video games, but I've heard this from multiple people. It's almost like if you don't start day one, you're always going to be behind because everybody else has been training longer. So I think we're in that first stage of like a release day. You really want to jump on this and be part of that, that wave of we all use AI in our everyday lives, right? So
absolutely.
So hopefully you find this beneficial. Hopefully this takes away some of that fear of playing around with the tool. We're here to encourage you, like just get in there, get your hands dirty, ask it anything. Again, it's a very safe space. Like nobody's going to judge you. I even recommend downloading it to your phone and just doing voice prompts as you think of things and see what it spits out, right? It's very handy in that way. So
absolutely.
We all embraced Alexa and Siri. Like this is just the next iteration of it from my vantage point.
It's a great way of putting it.
Yep. All right. Until the next time, thanks again for listening. Again, Dustin Biddle, my guest of today. You want to tell them where to find you?
You can find me Dustin Biddle on LinkedIn.
All right. And again, I'm your host, Chuck Scott. And if you're listening to this podcast, you already know where to find me. But On LinkedIn, Chuck Scott, Scott Q Consulting, and I look forward to continuing this series.
Were you inspired by what you heard on today's episode? Would you like to see this reflected in your organization's leadership? Hi, my name is Chuck Scott, and I'm the founder and CEO of Scott Q Consulting. At Scott Q Consulting, I believe in building trust through transparency. The content found in this podcast is no different. The strategies shared will help your teams better organize, communicate, and execute in all areas of their lives when applied. Scott Q Consulting offers coaching services for executive teams as well as career coaching services for individuals. My team specializes in digital transformation consulting, process automation, and project delivery for enterprise-sized clients, small to mid-sized businesses, and startup companies. Our areas of focus include retail, supply chain, and call center technology. You can find Scott Q Consulting on LinkedIn or visit our website at scottq.consulting. Thanks for listening today. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and podcast for more inspiring interviews with people just like you who are taking control of their professional and personal lives through proven methodologies.